emotional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Megan.
And I'm Shirin.
And it's raining. Oh, God.
And it's raining.
It makes me so tired.
Oh, it's fine. It's good for recording
It is good for recording the podcast. It's true.
Drinking Starbucks.
Yeah, that's what we're doing to stay awake today. What are you doing? So we're in the middle of YA Fantasy Month. If you're just joining us, hooray. Aren't we excited? Love that. And today we're talking about another YA fantasy adaptation, Beautiful Creatures. I feel like this movie maybe went under the radar.
It really
for a lot of
did.
people. I can't believe you'd never seen it. Trina had never seen this movie, and
I didn't even know what it was about.
She's seen all of them, and I had seen this one actually a couple of times. My mom
Had
likes
you
this
really?
movie a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it was on TV, she would just put it on because she
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, the lead's charming. I like him."
Yes, it's very cozy.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. It really has that kind of vibe. So we're gonna get into it today. We haven't read these books, so I don't know about the accuracy.
We really need to be better about that.
I know.
We're sorry, everyone.
I don't know anything about the accuracy of the adaptation, so I'm sure if some people have read the series, they can probably tell us, is it terrible? Is it good that way? Do they change the entire story? I don't know.
Is it one of those that the book is really good and then the movie itself is pretty good, but it's not really accurate?
But it's not really accurate too, but it's still a decent film? Or did they take more than one book and amalgamate them into a film?
Yeah, we were talking about that, right? That we weren't really sure.
I don't know
if that's what the approach was. They do that with some series.
Sometimes.
We were talking about a series of unfortunate events. They tried to do that.
And I think that it's
did not
because
work.
they just don't know whether or not it's going to pick up and whether or not there will be a sequel or not. So when that happens, I feel like it's just, they're like, I don't know, let's try this. And hopefully, maybe we'll get a sequel and then we'll do something different with it. I don't know. Well, we're going to get right into it, and we're going to talk about Beautiful Creatures.
I like you.
You don't know anything about me. I don't know who I really am inside. I don't know what I'll be.
Our words, our language can't explain all that there is.
My powers will be claimed for either the light or the dark. I have 75 days.
This is an improvement from the last time that we were talking
Good
about
Lord.
a movie. Oh, if you didn't join us for that last episode, we were talking about Fallen from 2016, which that movie is something else.
I don't know. Yeah, it was worse than the Hallmark movie triathlon that we did.
It might have been. It might have. The acting might have been worse than it was in the.
And again, I don't blame the actors. I blame the script.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah.
So. I blame script and direction most of the time. I'm sure that's a big combination for it. So, okay. Beautiful Creatures was released in 2013 for people who, aren't aware. It's based on the 2009 novel of the same name by, who is it? Cami Garcia and Margaret Stohl. And it currently has a score of 6.1 out of 10 on IMDB and 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. I would have given it a little higher than that.
Well, what's the audience score?
I think the audience score isn't much higher. Hang on. It's 54.
What? Fallen had a higher audience
Oh my God,
score?
you're right.
No.
Oh, people need to reevaluate
Y'all,
a little bit.
No. Just no.
I think this film just kind of goes to show that no matter what the script is, how accurate or inaccurate it is to a novel, that, if you bother with your casting and the script and direction, if your production value is a little bit higher, you can just get a much better film out of that.
I have no words. This movie with Viola Davis and some really fantastic, charming acting has less on audience score on Rotten Tomatoes than Fallen did.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Because, so this story has, it's so interesting because I think that, I feel like Fallen and Beautiful Creatures both have a lot of similarities in, they're doing, obviously, young adult romantic fantasy with gothic elements in both cases, but in a really different way. With Fallen, you had the gothic elements of like an old, you know, like castle style school, and we're out in the middle of nowhere and whatever. And this, I find Beautiful Creatures is much more like, it's gothic, like deep South gothic, like old Southern gothic.
Fallen was also supposed to take place in Georgia.
Yeah, but
though.
Nothing made me think that it was in Georgia. At least in this, I was like, I believe that they're
I love
somewhere.
the Southern accents. I love Viola Davis. I loved everybody in this.
I loved Emma Thompson. I loved everyone.
They were fun. They were funny. They were out there. Like, the cast was charming. They were captivating. Like,
there was just more to it. So Beautiful Creatures is not about fallen angels. It's about witches. Or they call them casters anyway in this particular universe or whatever. It does follow, it's set in South Carolina, and it does follow a narration. I think that the narration is mostly from the male lead's perspective, which is also different. You don't get that very often. It's usually like the girl is the narrator and that's it. But in this particular case, you get a male lead named Ethan, who has lived in this teeny tiny town of Gatlin for his whole life, and he's bored and he hates it there, and his mom passed away. Yeah, his mom passed away a year ago, and so like his dad's been basically catatonic since then, is my understanding. Until he meets a young woman named Lena Duchannes, who's come to town. She's part of one of the oldest families in Gatlin, who basically founded the town called the Ravenwoods.
Still
own the land. I believe that most of the buildings in town sit on all kinds of things. She's come to live with her uncle because both of her parents died. And it kicks off, I guess, like a supernatural, first of all, a romance between the two of them, yes, but it kicks off a supernatural series of events because, as we learn, Lena is a young witch. She's turning 16 within the next few months, and when she does, apparently the way that things work for these casters is that once they reach 16, they will be claimed for either light magic or dark magic, and supposedly they have no say in the matter. Apparently it's all revealed by their true nature, quote unquote, whatever that means.
And isn't there something about like the girls not having a choice or something?
Yes,
or it's stronger in the girls?
It's that for female casters, apparently there's no option, like in the sense if you can't force yourself, because so Lena's uncle Macon, who's played by Jeremy Irons, apparently he technically was a dark caster, but he chose to stop doing that and function as a light caster instead for like Lena's benefit as well.
There is like some suggestion though that is having an impact on him, like on
that
his
powers are waning basically because of it, because he's chosen to go against his supposedly his nature. Yeah. That's it. So obviously, you know, their general like, I mean, it's interesting because I find you get your angstiness. Normally you get it from the girl and she's all like timid and awkward and annoying. But in this case, you have like a sarcastic, semi-charming boy.
Oh, he's great.
Character. I love, what's his name? Alden Ehrenreich, something like that.
I thought he was great. He was so charming. He was really good.
For once, we didn't have an annoying, chiseled, broody lead. Yeah. We just had like a cute teenage guy who was like just dealing with his own stuff. You know, his mom passed away. His dad's like non-existent at this point.
He also looked way too old to be playing.
Oh, 100%. He was probably like 25. Yeah. You know, and just someone who's like trying to, like someone with whom the character, they were willing to be goofy about it. There are so many instances of him being funny.
Yes. And like, I love that because it's like he keeps kind of getting like shot down either by like her uncle or her and their magic. And he keeps getting like spun up in some sort of like magic spell.
Yeah.
He just keeps kind of shaking it off and being like, well, that happened.
Well, that happened. That was weird.
Anyway.
You know, and I liked that. And I liked that Lena's character isn't timid and awkward and stuff. She's actually really cranky most of the time because of everything that she's dealing with and that she doesn't want to have to deal with. So she doesn't like, I do find that her character, unfortunately, as the film continues and as we get closer to her birthday and closer to her trying to find a solution to this issue, she does get a little more whiny like that, kind of. She's mostly crying all the time and stuff, and you're like, ugh, okay, fine. Yeah. And I get it, whatever, it's for story purposes. But I do find that especially at first, when I first watched this movie, I was like, oh, I'm going to like this one, I think, because she didn't come in like, oh, I'm so awkward and no one likes me. She came in and she was like, fuck off.
Yeah, she's like, no one likes me, so what?
Get
like,
fucked. And I was like, I appreciate that. I feel like that's what a regular teenager would actually be like.
Pretty much. Like, you'd get kind of cranky pants like that if you switch schools a whole bunch of times. And especially the way that they illustrate, like, the other girls who are in the high school.
Oh, they're the worst.
Hilarious, by the way. It's like a caricature of, like, your Southern Belle.
Zoe Deutsch's character there, Emily.
So funny.
She's very funny. Also, she's hilarious. Everything I see her in, she's really funny.
Yes. Oh,
she was in Zombieland 2.
Oh,
she, stole the fucking show in that movie because it's not great.
She was great in this movie. Like, she kept popping up and, like, acting like she's the main character's, like, wife, basically, already. And he is just not having
sugar,
it.
I wish you wouldn't read books like that. They put ideas in your head. And you're like, oh, God. I apologize to any Southern person listening to this.
We love your accent.
I'm so sorry. I wish I had one, too. Mine is terrible.
Remember when we were on vacation and I told that girl from Georgia that I really liked her accent?
Oh my God.
And she goes, it's not an accent.
She's so funny. She's like, it's not really an accent, but she's like, Canadian people really love it. And we were like, listen, it's because ours are terrible.
Yeah, and that is, like, I don't know if you want to classify it as an accent, but the way you speak is
really
just
fun.
Endearing.
Yeah. So Lena's sort of battling the idea of going dark, quote unquote, and what could happen. And you do have and so they're falling in love with each other, but they're also being told by all of the adults in their lives that they shouldn't be together. No, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And you don't really understand why for a while. But Ethan on a run, because he is like an insomniac and he keeps having dreams of this woman that he can't quite see, but obviously it's Lena, obviously. Spoiler alert.
And we find out that she's been dreaming of him.
And she's been dreaming of him too. When he goes on runs really early in the morning, of course, Gatlin's located basically right next to a major battlefield from the Civil War where they do all kinds of reenactments, which I think is still a thing that people do. And he finds this locket one day when he's going for a run, and it's got people's initials in it, and it's dated from 1863, so from basically during the Civil War. And when he and Lena touch it together, they both get these weird flashbacks about a couple in that era and someone dying, and you're like, okay, what is this? And it is explained. See, again, we watched Fallen, and then we watched this the same night. We watched this right after, and it was such a contrast to have flashbacks that make no sense versus flashbacks that are explained.
Yeah, because you're like, okay, we're doing the flashback thing,
sure,
right? Let's talk this through. We're doing the flashback thing. I can live with that. Yeah. But I have to know that there's going to be some sort of explanation of said flashback. And it needs to become clearer as the movie's going along. It can't just be a big jumble of blur and then we never get unblurred.
No. And no, that's it. We never truly get an explanation for why. No, in this particular case, it turns out that Ethan's ancestor fell in love with Lena's ancestor during the Civil War. Yep. What's it called when somebody runs away from? Damn it. Desertion.
Is that the word?
Yeah. Is abandonment of military duty or post without permission.
I feel like there's another word for it.
No, because you're like a deserter, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, it's desertion. All right, fine. Anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. So he's basically, that's it. He deserts, I guess, in the middle of the Civil War, and when he gets back to her, he's killed. And she was a caster, obviously her ancestor as well, because I think they all have been. And so she goes dark in order to bring him back to life, because you're basically giving up your own soul if you do something like that, because you can't just resurrect people willy-nilly.
Right.
Unless you're a necromancer. Which we still need more stories about. I'm bringing it full circle.
Yeah, I guess it's desertion. Sorry. Yeah.
It feels like it should be something else. I want to say absconds, but that just sounds too ridiculous.
Abdicate, but that's if you're royal.
That's royalty.
We're going to look this up.
Anyway. So because of that, obviously, so I think it's supposed to be one of those things where intergenerationally, the Duchannes and the Wates are drawn to one another. I'm pretty sure that's what we're meant to take from that, because they also, so there's something too that I realized this time watching it, because it's been years since I've seen it. There's something that I realized this time as well. Macon, her uncle, makes reference to Ethan's mom who passed
Yes.
away several times
Yes.
in a way that makes me think that he was in love with her.
Yes,
And
absolutely, because he remembers things that she says.
Yeah, and stuff. And I'm like, okay, interesting. So I don't know if that has something to do with it too. So I guess the main part of the darkness of this particular story is Lena was told that her parents were killed in a car crash when she was a kid. That's not true. Oh, I don't know about her dad, but that's not true. Her mother is actually like a really, really, really dark caster named Sarafine, and she's Macon's sister. And she has been like hiding in the darkness, quote unquote, for, years and years.
And she only possesses people.
She never like shows her true form. She only possesses other people in order to like do what she wants to do, and then she goes away again for a while. So what she's doing right now, because Lena's about to turn 16, she will be claimed, blah blah blah, that Serafine's decided, well, of course she's going to be claimed for the dark because she's my child, and I'll use her and we'll take over the world pretty much. Like, we'll do whatever we want to do.
The world.
I know. Yeah. They've all got really pinky in the brain, like ambition, like that level of ambition exists in all of them.
It's just like, why would you want to take over the world? Like, that just sounds exhausting.
Literally, what are you going to do?
Like, just go run a town somewhere in the South. Like,
take over one area. You don't really need to do anything else. So anyway, that's what's been decided. But of course, they're all trying to, the rest of the family pretty much is trying to get her to stay, on the side of the light, basically. And of course, obviously, Ethan tries to help her with that as well, but it's like not an easy thing. And, what Sarafine wants to do also is to like get Ethan out of the way, kill him, do whatever. So of course, like when she feels that sort of heartbreak, she'll automatically go dark. Right?
Yeah, but like Ethan like becomes her like protector.
He basically does. Yeah. There's something a little bit unclear about that part of the story that I was like, I don't understand, because when they're saying, they're like, oh well, now like he's the thing that will like calm her down. I'm like, that why?
Yeah, I mean, then I guess it makes sense that Sarafine wants to kill him off then at that point, because he would be the only thing standing in her way.
That's true. Luckily, though, in this adaptation, she delightfully takes the form of like a religious zealot in the town.
Oh, it's so funny. Played by Emma Thompson.
Played by Emma Thompson. I forget her character's name is Mrs. Lewis or something, and she's Ethan's best friend's mom, actually. Like, Mrs. Lewis is that person, technically, but when she's taken over as Sarafine, she's Emma Thompson, so obviously she does an incredible job of both sides, and it's always fun to see, like, a duality of characters being played by the same person. That's always, like, a fun thing to see. So she gets to do both, which is always cool. And we've seen, like, that she's doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and she also uses the only other fully dark caster in their family, Ridley, yeah. Yes, Ridley, who is Lena's cousin. She was one that was fully claimed as a dark caster when she turned 16, because I guess she's like a few years older than Lena, and she's a siren. So she can mostly men, but everybody, she can suggestively just tell everyone what to do, and they have no choice but to listen to her. Right. There's like kind of a cool little flashback scene when she shows like with her what happened. She tried to run away when she was turning 16 because she told Lena, she was like, I'm going to hurt someone. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this at all. And then she tried to run away. She turned, of course, as soon as she turned 16, and she's at like a train station, like a deserted train station. There's some drunk guy across the tracks all the way on the other side, and all she had to do was look at him. He was like in a trance, walks onto the train track, stands there, and then just gets hit by a train on purpose, basically. Yeah,
so I guess the portrayal here is that she gets claimed by the darkness.
Well, she's a siren,
also
right?
Siren.
So sirens, like in a folklore sort of way, like legendarily would like lure men to their deaths. Normally at sea, but you could, I'm sure you could do it on land too.
Hey, all sirens out there, can you let us
know? Send us a DM.
Are you able to do land and sea?
That would be a fun thing to read about too. Would be like sirens.
That would modern sirens.
Yeah, and like you could have like an interesting duality between the ones who decide that they want to just like do that to people and the ones who don't really.
Yeah,
that would be interesting. I would read that.
Battle of them.
Yeah, I would read that. Anyway,
we'd read a lot of things.
We'd read a lot of things. So what winds up happening, what everything turns out to be, is that through doing a whole bunch of different research, Lena realizes that the only way that she can fully stay light or like not be overtaken by the darkness is not to have like any emotional attachment, so, or anybody around her like that. So she erases Ethan's memories of her completely one night. And the only other person, like other than her family, the only other person who's aware of this is, we haven't even mentioned this yet, but Viola Davis is in this movie.
She's awesome in this.
Yeah, she plays Emma. She's I think she runs the local library, like she runs the library itself, but she was also really good friends with Ethan's mother.
And she promised that she would look after
So
Ethan.
she's always coming over and bringing him food and doing stuff. And I was really glad when I first saw this that she wasn't just like the housekeeper. But she's like a friend of the family who's been doing this since his dad is basically like unable to do anything at this point. And it turns out also that Emma, whose family has also been in Gatlin forever, is a seer. And she and Macon know each other quite well, and they work in tandem, irritated with each other. They have like a good little scene where they like play off of each other really well, where, you know, he's like asking her to get answers about Sarafine and what she's up to, and she does it, but she's like, shut the fuck up and let me do my job. And
she's like,
and
stop
she tells
taking
him to,
advantage of
and she
me
tells
and
him
my
to
family.
stop sassing her and stop like being rude when he's like, you know, he's like, well, find out. He's like, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's so good. And like she's contacting her ancestors who are deceased, and she shows up with like containers of their favorite
fried
foods
oysters and stuff,
and like coconut pie. And
It's
he
cute.
he's like, well, it's no wonder they're not.
No wonder he's
here
dead.
anymore.
Anyway.
So like it's just a really good
It's fun because the characters have backstory that is properly integrated into the script.
Yeah,
it's not like a secondary thought of like, oh, I guess we should give this person a personality halfway through the movie. No, like they have one.
They have one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's interesting that way. So yeah, so we do get, obviously that's it. She's erased his memory, and then the day of her 16th birthday is also the day that the town is doing a stupid Civil War reenactment thing, and all the kids have to participate, even though it's the middle of their Christmas break. Do you know how fucking annoyed I would have been by that?
For a Civil War reenactment?
Seriously. Like their prof tells them at the beginning, he's like, you'll all be expected to participate despite the fact that it is in the middle of your winter break. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
You can't force me to do this.
Literally, no. Not when school's not in session. Anyway. So of course, he and his friend, whose mom is Emma Thompson, there was his name, Link. Link has been seduced by Ridley this whole time because she does her siren thing with him, but he doesn't even know that she's done it. He doesn't remember after he's seen her that she's doing it. And they have like their little like supposedly like fake pistols, right? And they're like, God, this whole reenactment is so fucking boring. Do you want to just like quote unquote kill each other and then we can leave? But of course, Link has an actual bullet in his gun. When he shoots Ethan, it shoots him. And Lena realizes what's happened. And of course, she does the same thing that her ancestor previously did, and she like does whatever resurrection spell to bring him back.
Not something that they are allowed to do.
It basically starts a natural disaster. But he also like, that's it when, you know, she's all like sad and Sarafine shows up with Ridley and she's like, yes, you're upset. Now come be dark. Come do the dark thing with us. And, you know, at first she starts to, but when the other, you know, members of her like family are like, don't do this. Yeah. Like, you don't have to do this. You know that you
light.
Yeah, of course. It's always the light and the dark, right? Like that's always like the thing about it, like that sort of duality between those two. So of course, you know, she chooses not to. She, I guess, banishes Sarafine back to from whence she came, whatever the fuck, the netherworld or whatever.
Yeah, because is it like an unwritten like understanding that Lena is like the most powerful one of all of them?
Apparently she's going to be, partially because of her lineage and partially because this birthday, the 16th birthday, is on like the most powerful solstice that we've seen in 5,000 years or something. Yeah, that's what she says.
Yeah, so there's like this underlying understanding that she's going to be extremely powerful, which is why all this like pushing and pulling from both sides is happening, you know?
And then when she ultimately chooses, of course, not to do this, not to kill a whole bunch of innocent people or do anything crazy, it's revealed that the body on the ground that was shot is not Ethan, it's Macon, and he just had like a charm, basically, like some sort of like, I guess, like shape-shifting spell on, and the Macon that we saw earlier is her other cousin, who's there, too. Yeah, you fell asleep at some point during this movie.
I may need to go back and rewatch that.
Oh, Larkin, that's it. Yeah, the other cousin that she has there. You know, the one who was like eating during the fight at the table?
Ridley's brother.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like pretending to be Macon, and Macon was pretending to be Ethan because he knew that if Ethan were actually there, Sarafine would have found a way to kill him. Right. So, yeah, so then unfortunately Macon dies. And I was like, no, Jeremy Irons, no.
Who's going to enforce the Ravenwood name
Yeah, seriously. Nobody else looks as cool as you do.
No.
I love
he
that
just, like,
it's
rocks into like a community
my
meeting
God.
and is like,
It's
yeah,
so-
you want to do things against me?
It's so funny to see, like, I don't know the way that Macon's meant to look in the books, but it was really funny to watch the movie, and everybody has this whole thing, because of course Macon never really leaves their, like, very vast, sprawling property that they have, and I'm not sure, because they're all talking about, like, old man Ravenwood, and they're talking about Macon, but you expect him to be, like, some craggy, gross, like, old, like, creepy, like, little old man who's hunched over wearing a cane, and then, like, this very dapper, dashing man walks into the church, and you're like...
The inside of his house looks like a museum.
I love that it keeps changing. It changes with the seasons.
Yeah, I know, but, like, the outside of it looks like it's falling apart, which contributes to this idea that he's, like, this, like, crusty, like...
He's, like, this scary Boo Radley type, basically, and that's what everybody thinks about him, which, of course...
They do talk about To Kill a Mockingbird.
They talk about To Kill a Mockingbird,
movie,
and they talk about...
They
talk about To Kill a Mockingbird because they're reading it in class, and of course, you know, again, it's like the idea of, like, the outsider, that person who's not accepted for whatever reason, even though, in this case, it's an interesting one because he owns most of this town.
Yeah, you'd think that people would be a lot nicer to him.
Yeah, you'd figure. Anyway, so he dies, and she's able to, like, banish her mom and then lets Ridley go because she's like, whatever, get the fuck out of here. And then is basically able to fully claim her power properly for the light. But I think the idea, to a certain extent, is that she's got a little bit of both. And she's able
they show
to
her eyes at the end there,
that do like the quote unquote dark thing where they turn a kind of amber color, but I'm pretty sure that's their way of showing you, like, she can balance it because she has the power to do that in the first place. So,
and doesn't he come running back to her in the end?
Yeah, so basically what's happened is that this whole time, you know, Ethan was never at the reenactment, and he still doesn't really know her in his mind because she erased all the memories of their relationship. So right before he's, like, leaving town because he's graduated, right before he leaves town, he actually sees her at the library, and he goes up and he talks to her about, like, a book a little bit and stuff, and he's, you know, nice to her. And then he's driving out of town with Link,
and he sees the
and
sign
when he sees
that had been burnt by her.
And when he sees the sign of, like, oh, you're now leaving Gatlin, which, like, they'd previously had, like, a couple of different scenes where they were there, he remembers things, and he, like, gets out of the car and, like, shouts her name, basically, and then we cut to credits.
Yeah.
But they had, like, it was just a good relationship vibe, which is so rare in adaptations like this that you just don't see that. Like, they were goofy.
Books, like, even in, like, YA books, I find sometimes, like, the relationships are
they're
just
terrible.
Not healthy. Like, you're, like, reading this and you're like, what are we putting out into the world here, people?
But
like,
this one was, like, this one was good. They were goofy with each other. They were acting like normal fucking teenagers.
Of course. And they were, like, awkward. And she even says to him, like, promise me that our first date is going to be a normal, awkward teenage date.
Yeah, and he goes, yeah, don't worry, I won't even call you afterwards.
Yeah, like, they're super cute and
like, it's
fun.
It's just nice. And, like, and again, that they were willing to do something. That's when you know you have, like, a better script and a better character for, like, your male lead, is when they're able to do stuff where they're able to make it funny.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when after, let's say he passes out at one point after one of the spells that someone has tried on him, and when she's explaining to him what's happened, he's, like, lying in bed with a big furry blanket up to his neck and like a cold towel, like, on his forehead, and you're like, oh my god, this is so
and he's, like, holding out a cup for tea, you know, and it's really funny. Yeah, it's a good movie. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I fell asleep at the end, but, like, Megan can attest that I
oh my gosh, she falls asleep
everything.
during everything, and it's weird because then when she actually watches the whole thing, she really likes it. So I can't figure it out because it doesn't have to do with the quality of film.
No. No, because I sat through all of Fallen.
Oh god.
I think it's because you got to make sure I'm, like, a little hungry, and then that.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, we were really full. We went out for dinner, so maybe that's why.
It was. I was like, I'm warm and I'm full.
Now I'm tired.
I
knew at the moment you lay down on the couch, I was like, Jesus Christ, she's going to fall asleep after the movie.
I was hoping you hadn't noticed, but then I think I was snoring a bit.
You did a bit. The things that happen after you've been friends for over 10 years, I'm telling you. So we liked this movie. I just enjoyed this film. Now I can attest to the fact that it's been at least 7 or 8 years since I've seen it, and I still like it.
It's a good movie.
It's just a good time, you know? I don't need it to be groundbreaking or do anything super different.
But I want the characters to be endearing and captivating.
I like the characters in it. I find it interesting. I get the feeling it's probably one of those that maybe if people didn't like it, it's because the people who watched it read the books and they did something maybe really different with the film adaptation. I could see that being a thing.
Yeah.
I could see that being something that people were like, oh, well, you know, they changed all of this and they did all these things and I didn't like the way that it turned out because it was like a completely different story. Like, whatever the situation might be, that I would believe for sure. But yeah, I liked it. Have you guys seen this movie? Actually, have you read the books too? Because I'm seriously considering trying the first one.
I think I'm going to read them.
Yeah. I could see doing that. I think I'll probably pick them up and read them because why not?
I mean, they're fun.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So you can let us know about that over on Instagram at fullybookedca. You can also check out our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/bookwaswaybetter. And if you are still here with us, which I hope you are, please feel free to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening because it really helps us get the show out in front of more people. But until next week, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.